Welcome to another edition of EFed News. It's your boy, the Sauce Boss, and I'm here today to talk about all the new happenings in the hobby of EFed wrestling. I know it's been a while since we've done a news show. I've been away from the mic, but I'm back in action here, and I'm ready to get you all caught up on all the Twitter drama so that you don't have to follow it yourself. I've been a little checked out. I have to admit, I haven't been on the ball. I haven't been the traditional troll online that I've been in the past. Shitlord is probably a better word, but I'd like to stir the pot a little bit once in a while. I like to rustle the jimmies. I like to shake things up just for the sake of entertainment. And I've been away from been a little out of pocket for a little while, but that's okay because I'm back here. So, just to get caught up on things here, we were talking about before I left. Arcadia was the big happening going on, and there's still a lot of mystery around the event, exactly what it is, who's invited, who's appearing. We've done a separate video just pertaining to Arcadia in general. If you haven't seen that on the Over the Top network, please go to the channel now. Check out that video. While you're there, go ahead and give us a subscribe. We appreciate it. The channel's been growing with support from listeners like you, and we want to continue doing things that you enjoy consuming. So Arcadia, I think, is going to be one of those events. It's going to be a marquee event that we're going to remember at the end of the year as one of the milestones. I don't know who's behind it. I don't know who's involved, but you just get this feeling like there's a plan and that they're going to deliver on this thing because the marketing that they've done, the planning ahead of time, has been really remarkable, and it's been entertaining. So, regardless of what the intentions are at the end, I think that we're going to get a good experience out of this thing, and it should be memorable and certainly creative. Okay, on top of that, one of our feds has closed this year. The end of season 2 for Pro Wrestling Excellence (PWE), and I certainly understand why feds close, and in this case, why it had to be shut down. When real life has a way of just hitting you in the face out of nowhere here, and I think that's what happened with the Fed owners over there. So I don't think there was any huge drama or anything that blew up, and of course I'm just taking this all secondhand, but it seems like they shut down for season 2, but it may bubble up again to the surface for a season 3, and I think most of the folks that were over there at PWE have already found a new home somewhere else. Lots of good folks over there, beautiful website as well. So sorry to see them go. It's never a good day when a Fed closes. So lots of other Feds are looking there to pick up the slack, take in your homeless, take in the refugees, and get them to work as soon as possible. If you're looking for a place, you may want to consider UGWC. They have a Survival of the Fittest tournament coming up. They announced that recently. Lots of tournaments going on right now. I know this is the time of year for tournaments. March Madness, King of the Ring, all that. Whichever one New Japan does. I forget what it's called. I don't remember what it's called. But if there was a World Cup tournament this year, you would expect pretty much more of the same, but UGWC getting in on the action there, and they've got what they've got over there is a different flavor of ice cream. It might be for you, it might not be for you, but if it is, check it out. And I know that they're pretty responsive, and they'd be happy to take you in. A lot of folks that I worked with in the past are over there now, and they seem to really enjoy it. So I hope that they do well with it. Up next, there was an invitation by somebody who's only known to me by the name of Dreamy Satan on Twitter. And the concept is an invitational event in Manhattan as a fight club. And this sounds a lot like Fight New York, right? I believe their entire Fed was done inside a building in New York City. And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just working off of uh, urban legends and things that I've heard in passing. I never spent any time over there. But a lot of the folks who did spend some time there seem to have fond memories of it. And there's always that temptation to go back to New York City and do a little bit more. So an underground fight club in an angled Fed would be pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. I've seen Fight Club and I love it. I've seen the movie Lionheart with Jean-Claude Van Damme, and it's very, very good. There are some other underground Fight Club movies. Real Steel's pretty badass. Not an underground Fight Club, but still pretty damn cool. Bloodsport, pretty damn cool. So I'm all for it. I've had more and more thoughts about doing an angle Fed recently, knowing that it's a lot like working in a real wrestling federation. You know the results of your matches, but you don't know the results of anybody else's matches. That could be a lot of fun. I've never tried it. Maybe it would be good. I think it would take the right mix of people to get it right, though. There's still going to be politics involved. So if anybody knows about what's going on with that Dreamy Satan Invitational Fed, let me hear about it. I'd love to hear about it. One of the big topics that was out there, and maybe I should have led the show with this, is whether or not it's acceptable to ask for feedback after you lose a match. This happens all the time. To me, it seems like maybe the only time it's appropriate to ask for feedback is, hey, I lost a match. I'm trying to make sense of this. I'm trying to cope with it. I'm trying to grow and to move on from this loss. Please tell me what I can do. What areas do you see possibility for growth? Give me some feedback. It's incredibly hard to do that for most writers, to put yourself out there and to really be humbled. I know some people will take the stance of, I don't think I lost. Explain to me how I could possibly lose this match. And if you come in aggressive like that, then yeah, maybe you are in the wrong by asking for the feedback because you're trying to muscle the Fed head for victories. But it's been my experience with running the World Series of Wrestling is that people don't come in hot like that. And if they do, it's understandable, right? Because they've spent a lot of time writing these stories, building these characters. And if they believe that they've followed the rules that you set forth and you weren't clear about what the expectations were, they thought it was something that it wasn't. I mean, you could understand if you were in their shoes that, just how upset you would be. So you do owe them a little bit of an explanation. Sometimes it's just a case of, look, the other guy was just better. Sometimes you run into someone who's just really good, and sometimes they kill it. And even though you did very well, you got beat by someone who did really, really well. So that's a tough pill to swallow, knowing that there's nothing else you could have done better. Just the other person is just a gifted, talented writer. But in some cases, you left something out that the judges were looking for. One of the recent ones I've heard is giving a promo in a vacuum. Sometimes judges are looking for a little bit of setup. Give me a setting. Tell me where this promo is taking place. What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? Why are we here? Don't just give me a voice recording. And that was my opinion, maybe about a year ago as well, is that how could I lose to someone who's just throwing in random shoots in the middle of their role play? But as time went on, I started to just follow what the winners were doing and say, well, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. And I started running the same way. And then that worked okay for a little while until it finally rose up and bit me in the ass because I worked in a new Fed where the judges were a little bit more particular about that. So it really speaks to the fact that you need to know the basics of your Fed. You need to know what the judges are looking for. And sometimes that's knowledge that you gain over a period of time. So those first 3 months in a Fed is really just a trial and error process where you're figuring out what works. What do people have to do to be successful here? What are the types of characters that get pushed? Even though it is competitive, you do see booking favor certain characters for certain reasons, and those are all things that you need to learn. But it's perfectly acceptable to ask for feedback, especially if you want to become a better writer. How else will you know what you did wrong? Me personally, I'm terrified to ask for feedback, and I don't know why. But if you lack confidence in your own writing, you typically won't ask for feedback. But if you're supremely confident in your writing and you lose any match, or maybe you just didn't, maybe you won the match, but you didn't perform or weren't as featured as well as you would have liked, I can understand people getting upset about that as well. So some of this is on the Fed head. In fact, I would say most of it is on the Fed head of creating open lines of communication, knowing your talent, knowing which ones need to be coddled, which ones need to be left alone, providing feedback and providing encouragement where needed, and also being tough on people when they need some tough love as well. It's not unlike running your own business. You're going to or coaching a team, right? Each one of your players are going to be motivated by something different, and it's your responsibility as the coach to tell them what they need to hear to get the best out of them. So if somebody comes to you, they make themselves vulnerable and say, look, man, I don't know what to say or what to do. Just tell me something. Give me some peace here. Where did I go wrong in this role play? Give them feedback. If they won their match and they're like, how do I do even better than I did, even though I won? I think it's not unfair to say, look, man, you won. Don't worry about it. Just keep doing what you're doing. I think that's perfectly fine. And maybe it is a little unreasonable for people to say, yeah, I know I'm good, but tell me where I could be better. I don't think that's. I think your time is better spent on the writers who need improvement rather than making the rich even richer than they are. I don't think that helps the hobby. I think what's best for everybody is if we lift up those voices who are struggling, who are having a hard time getting that win, can't get over the hump, or can't get the recognition that others have. As a leader in the industry, you have a responsibility to be a role model. It's not really fair to everybody else for you to still demand attention and demand coaching and assistance when you're already at the top. So that's just something to consider, and that's just my personal opinion on it. I'm not one of the writers who's at the top of the game. So I don't know what it's like. Maybe it's very lonely on the top, and the only solace you have is in the writing. But as somebody who's been stuck in the mid-card forever, I can tell you there are a lot of ups and downs, and people are much nicer to you after you lose a match to them than after you beat them. So if you're able to handle your losses without completely collapsing and rage quitting, then you're doing a great job as far as I'm concerned. And I hope that you continue to improve. And I'd be happy to give you feedback. So for that Fed who says, I refuse to give feedback, I think they're going to find out pretty quickly that they're not going to have any writers in their Fed for very long. I would chalk that up to maturity. It seems like that Fed may have some issues with maturity. I would guess it's a very young writer who wanted to run their own Fed, and they're going to learn some things, and they're going to grow over time as well. So that maybe as a Fed head, they just have to learn it the hard way. Okay, one of my personal gripes, my biggest pet peeves, next topic, is the folks who decide that they want to shit where they eat. They want to piss upstream and ruin everybody's good time by adding political commentary on current events to EFed Twitter, meaning that we follow a wrestler because we enjoy the character. And this happens in real life wrestling as well. I would use Dwayne The Rock Johnson as an example. Somebody who I love the character, respect the ring work, but then they come out and they take political stances on things. And it's like, why? Why pollute the water when we get into this hobby for escapism? You come in here and you make comments on political candidates. You make comments on divisive topics. You make comments on provocative content, especially when it's a news story about a recent crime and the data is still being collected. It's not the time to put your comment out there so that people know which side you're on. I wish that people would keep those out of character comments just out of the game, because it's taken some wrestlers that I really liked, some EFed wrestlers and handlers that I really liked, and said, you know what? I don't think that I want to be friends with these people. I don't want to interact with them because they are making comments that would make me feel like if I disagreed with them, that it would not be acceptable for me to have an opinion in their presence. And it's just not fair for people to do that, to say just so matter-of-factly, this happened because of this reason, and it was done by these people. It's really dangerous to do that. I wish that people wouldn't do that in e-fedding. There are other venues and platforms for that. Just don't do it here, please. I won't do it if you won't do it. We have that understanding. You don't bring up sex, religion, politics, sports in a setting where you really want to get along with a big group of people. If you're in a private setting and you know each other really well, maybe you do talk about sex, religion, sports, politics. But if you don't know people very well, or if you're just speaking to a large audience, maybe we reel that in a little bit. Read the room. Have an understanding that not everybody has the same life experience that you do and may not feel the same way that you do. And you're probably going to alienate some people if you take a hard stance on some of those topics. So that's my 2 cents on that. I want to make a shout out here to one of my favorite feds that's going on right now. Somebody that I don't know what role I play in the Fed, but I've talked to the Fed head a few times and tried to workshop some ideas for them and try to help out where I could. And I want to make sure that I'm promoting them as well. If you haven't checked out Kingdom Come Wrestling, please check it out. I think it's a great Fed. They are hiring right now. The Fed head over there is Kennedy Matthews. And I believe that Molly Hatchet is involved with the staff over there as well. Both of them are willing to take risks on their product. And I think it's a situation where it's like, come as you are. Everybody's welcome. We just want to work with you. Everything is legal here. Within reason. Let's work together. Let's have some fun. Kingdom Come is a British location company. And they are going to be doing a not an Extreme Rules Battle Royal, but a Battle Royal where you can bring weapons. And that's called the Battle of Bannockburn, which is going to be happening later this year. Something that I think sounds pretty damn cool. If you're not familiar with what Bannockburn is, and I sure wasn't, but it's the final battle in Braveheart. If you've ever seen that movie, it's one of the locations where the Scottish people rose up against the British, or the English, I should say. Robert the Bruce led the army after William Wallace had been captured. I think a lot of that is historically accurate. Some of it probably is dramatized, but you get the idea. For anybody who lives in that part of the world, they're very familiar with it. As an American, I only have what I know from Mel Gibson movies. So, Kingdom Come, check it out. They are also affiliated with Thunder Pro Wrestling, so expect a lot of cross promotion there. They may be sharing talent. There may be some crossover events, but it's always exciting to see feds come together and run separate products in a forbidden door type scenario. So if you've got extra time, or you've got a character who's struggling in one fed and you think you'd like a new start somewhere else, go check out Kingdom Come. Kennedy Matthews is the Fed head. You can find them on Twitter, and I think you'd be pleasantly surprised with what they have to offer for you. Okay, circling back around to the juvenile Fed that we talked about before. One of the funny rules that Fed runs is a swearing limit in role plays. Now, I've heard this before, that some feds don't care if you swear. Some consider their federation to be cable television, so if you are going to curse, you should bleep out the curse words. Some feds will automatically replace the F word with fudge in your role plays, so that if you do curse, any of your curse words will be automatically replaced by non-curse words, making it a more PG type product, which I think that's fine, regardless of what your rules are on swearing. I just think it's very funny to draw a hard line and say that 7 swear words is fine. 8, it would not be fine. 6 is fine. It seems a little silly. Who's going to go through and count in a promo how many times you've cursed? I think it's one of those things where you have to be careful, where you don't want to overuse it because it loses its effect. But if you want to drive home a point at the end of your promo by dropping an F-bomb in there, sometimes that can work, especially if your character doesn't curse very often. So just something to think about there. I want to track to a story that I made a couple weeks ago where I thought OCW was closing the doors. I had heard that it shut down for a little while, and I was misinformed. I'm happy to admit that OCW is back up and running again. The Straighters are back in action. So I understand that the Fed had some real-life scenarios happen that eliminated internet access for about a week or so. And happy to say that they're rocking and rolling again. So hope that they're doing good things over there. I know OCW is another one of those odd ice cream flavors that if it's your type, if they're the pistachio ice cream of the freezer, for those of you who like it, you love it. For those of you who have never had it before, it might not be your cup of tea, but OCW has a great site. They have a very classic feel, in my opinion. They have an early 2000s feel to the way they run their Fed. And they're edgy. They're not afraid to say that we are not everybody else, and they're fine with that. So good for them. Glad to hear they're up and running again. Okay, Vodka Black has got a special show coming up, and this is you might want to strap in for this concept, but it is a 1999 throwback theme. And for some of you who are listening to this, that may have been before you were born, or certainly before you could even say the F word. But for old heads like me, I started EFedding back around that time. That was before I quit the first time. And I remember AOL Instant Messenger and GeoCities, Angel Fire. I remember chat rooms. I remember dial-up modems and terrible GIFs on pages that gave you sensory overload. I think that's the idea here is to dig up all those old member berries and give a heavy dose of nostalgia to the EFedders who have been around for a very, very long time. Vodka Black is running the project, so you would expect it to be high quality in regards to the writing, in regards to the graphic content. You would expect the show to deliver. Vodka has been unlucky in Feds. They seem to close wherever she goes, but if she's running the show, I have no doubt that this will be a fantastic super show. And if it sounds like if it's something up your alley, if you'd like to create a throwback character, go back to those times, but with consideration for modern audiences, I think that's the best way to put that, then reach out to Vodka and see if you can get on that show. So I can't wait to see how it turns out. It's called the Scott 213 Memorial. And that sounds like a classic AOL screen name. A name followed by a few numbers. So let's see how it works out. Also in EFed news, and this is more of a greater wrestling news approach, we had WrestleMania happen last weekend, which I thought night one was absolutely fantastic. I don't like WWE, but I really enjoyed night one. I thought that they killed it. They did a great job. They created such optimism for night two. And then on night two, they took a big, hefty, steaming crap on our chest and told us, you like this. And I don't like it. I don't like what they did on night two. They embarrassed Cody. They embarrassed Dark Asuka. They embarrassed The Miz twice. It just was not good. No titles changed hands. They had a useless women's wrestling match between 4 tag teams with nothing on the line, and Ronda Rousey won it. Just bad, bad, bad. And then I hear that Raw the next night was even worse. So there's some schadenfreude there. There's a little bit on my end taking pleasure in watching the WWE marks just be disappointed. But they got my hopes up again. I thought for sure at WrestleMania is when they do fan service and that they would give you what you wanted. But they did not. They kept the belt on Bianca Belair, which I'm actually okay with. I like Bianca, but I love Dark Asuka. And they had the demon, Finn Balor, lose at Mania in Hell in a Cell. How? How does that happen? How does the demon lose? This is the second time in a row the demon has lost. You'll remember the first time was to Roman Reigns. So at this point, that character is dead. Finn can never run the demon again. Finn, in my opinion, is buried. I'm really butthurt about that. That was the match I was really looking forward to. And I like Edge, but that was the wrong call there. Edge doesn't have much longer left wrestling, and Finn does. But you have, unless Finn asked them, said, hey, help me kill the demon. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm still on this AEW train. I like what they have going on right now. I think they've been doing a great job. The Ring of Honor Final Battle last week was very good for everybody except for Dante Martin, who still looked amazing on the show, but had one of the worst ankle injuries I think I've ever seen in a wrestling match in a spot that was relatively inconsequential. But it had to be exciting for those in attendance, and Ring of Honor needs to build some excitement behind their product. So I understand why they did go big. This was for the vacant Briscoes tag team title belts. So it meant a lot to everybody involved in that match. They all wanted to go big and land their high spots. The Lucha Brothers won, and they should have won. But it's just sad that people will only remember that match and the entire card, really, just because of the Dante Martin injury. AEW is back in the saddle. They had a really great Dynamite show last week. Very good. Switchblade is now all elite. In addition to that, they had a double dose on Friday night of Rampage and Battle of the Belts. Kind of underwhelming, but uh, it was better than watching Dark or Dark Elevation. And they also have this third hour on Wednesday nights, the full access show, which is very good. I hear that the ratings are up on that, so it's worth watching if you can stick around for the third hour on Wednesday nights. I highly recommend watching it. The only question for me is what to do next. Do I want to attend a live event here in a couple weeks? I've been to 4. I don't know if I want to go to this next one because it's in a bad neighborhood. I've also heard that All In pay per view is going to be in Wembley Stadium in London, where they can potentially have 80,000 fans in attendance. Anything less than 70,000 would probably be seen as a failure. I hope they can pull it off. They're going to have to put together their best show ever. It'll certainly be the biggest crowd they've ever had, and the first time in Europe. So, gosh, there's a lot of excitement behind that. It just makes you wonder what they can do because everybody's going to want to be on that card. Don't screw it up. Tony Khan needs to make sure he doesn't screw it up. One of the things that I've learned recently about AEW is that the videos about AEW, which feature only bad news, tend to do very well. Videos about how great AEW is don't do well. Videos about WWE, whether it's good news or bad news, they'll do well. But good news about AEW just seems to get buried. I think, and that comes from the WWE marks and the Jim Cornette fans just loving to pick on the new product. They love to bully AEW because they're the new kid on the block, and they just want to see someone else fail. They want to laugh at them and say, "See, WWE is great." They want to validate all the time and energy and emotion they put into WWE by watching somebody else fail. And I think that's too bad because I think the more wrestling you get, the better off you are in general. Okay, so just to wrap things up here, one final news story I want to get to is the Serena Riot Goodbye Tour. Serena has been very vocal online about, hey, I'm quitting EFedding soon. Anybody who wants a piece of me, let me know. I'm putting together a show, a goodbye show. And at this point, I can't tell if Serena is actually retiring or not because looks like the doors of FCW are open and Serena is the Fed head over there. So now I'm very confused. I don't know if Serena is retiring, is just retiring from in-ring action, or is leaving the hobby altogether. But there's a lot of traffic and the name is getting tossed around quite a bit. So if this is a marketing ploy and this is a WWE type situation where they're saying we are no longer the authority, the fans are the authority, we're the wild card rule is no longer in effect, and you stick to the brand you're on. They have lied so many times to your face as a fan. I don't think Serena is doing that. I think she's just having too much fun right now. And it's hard to say no to anything when you can see the light at the end of the tunnel when you're almost out of it. You kind of want to do it all because you don't want to leave with any regrets. And I think that's what's going on there. But I think that pretty much wraps it up for the EFed news this week. I know that's probably about 2 weeks worth of news there. But there sure are lots of things on the horizon here. I appreciate you tuning into the show. Thank you for checking out Over the Top. If you haven't hit that subscribe button down below, please do that. If you like what you've heard, leave a comment, leave a like, tell your friends. And until next time, everybody love everybody. And I'll see you all down the road.